Hello and welcome back to the Hyperspace Podcast. My name is Sam and I'm joined by Michael Ghosh. Michael, how you doing?
I'm good, thanks. You?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. And this week we are going to be talking about the recently announced Rian Johnson, not the trilogy, the film he did in the sequels, The Last Jedi, because it was recently announced that Rian Johnson's trilogy is going ahead, which caused a mass debate on Twitter about whether the film is good or whether it's bad, with a lot of people saying it's actually the best film. But me and Michael, we're going to give our opinions on it. I know Michael disagrees with that, but yeah, we're going to give our opinion on what we think about the film. I want to preface this by saying these are just our opinions. There's no right or wrong. To those who are saying you're not a real Star Wars fan if you like the sequels, you are everything wrong with the fan base.
The fan base,
Anyone
yeah.
can be a Star Wars fan. You don't have to pass a test. Stop being negative and accept that not everyone is going to have the same opinion as you. We all share a passion for Star Wars, and that should be celebrated. Right, rant over. Let's move on to the Last Jedi, the film we're going to be talking about. Let's kick off with you, Michael. Michael, what do you think about this film?
I think what you said the best film. I assume you talk about Star Wars film. If it's the best film ever, then
Yeah, best
very,
Star Wars
very
film.
okay. I was gonna say that's a very inaccurate. Someone needs to go out and watch some more films. I'm sure IMDb can recommend you best top 200 films. I'll say The Last Jedi. I don't believe it's there.
It probably isn't. It probably isn't.
Maybe
But yeah,
maybe try Lord of the Rings. They're definitely very
what do you
good
think
worth
about this
watching.
film, Michael? What are your thoughts?
I have mixed opinions, very mixed opinions. Good, bad, ugly. It's definitely a mixed bag. It's hard to say good things about it without saying all the bad things that go along with what it did well. Um, yeah, I think like I dislike the film in a lot of ways, but I rewatched it recently because we knew we were going to be talking about this, and I'll tell you what. I think when I watched it on its own, I had a lot. I enjoyed it. You know, it had really good visual effects. The fights were decent. The action's not too bad. There is some the choreographing of the Kylo Ren Rey Praetorian Guard fight is a bit dodgy in places,
Yeah.
but it's entertaining. It's entertaining enough. But the actual narrative has issues.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think The Last Jedi is one of those films. Me and Michael both rewatched it recently, and I came out of the film having watched it, having enjoyed it. I mean, I remember watching it the first time and coming out and thinking they've ruined Star Wars. This is
Yeah.
terrible. But on a rewatch, it actually explores some really interesting ideas, and I think that Rian Johnson did. I can see his vision, and I think he explored interesting ideas about the force and how it's not there's not good force, there's not bad force, it's all one living thing that can be manipulated for good and could be manipulated for bad. And I think it explores some interesting ideas about good and evil. But yeah, there are definitely bad things
I
about the
mean,
film.
there's interesting things about discussing like war profiteering when they go to Canto Bay.
Yeah,
I think that's an area of Star Wars maybe a lot of people outside, I guess, maybe us, think about. Like we might know about a few of the big industries like Kuat shipyards who do a lot of the ships from the prequels, that sort, and I think they do the Star Destroyers as well, that sort of thing. But the film explores it in a way that the films haven't, about how people
yeah,
play both sides of the war because they can make money off it. I think that was interesting. Yeah, it does explore interesting things. I think when I first watched it in the cinema, my opinion was a bit more mixed than, oh, they've ruined Star Wars, although that was one of the thoughts running through my mind. But like I was entertained. I think there's a difference between making a good film and making an entertaining film. They're very different. There's different criteria. If you're entertained, you kind of know if you're entertained or not, but you've got to think about whether a film is good as a film or not a bit more than I'm not obviously a lot of people have different opinions. So if you're entertained, then it's good, but it's not the line of thinking I would go down. I think if a film's good, then you can. There's a lot. There isn't. It's not as flawed, or the story is coherent. It's not just flashing images and pretty colors and nice sounds.
Yeah, yeah, no, I get you. I think as you said about the Canto Bite scene, going back to that, yeah, I think that was actually like an underrated part of the movie. A lot of people didn't like it, and I think DJ being introduced as the character, the guy that they, I thought he was quite interesting. I think one of the things he said, I think, was just I think it gave a really interesting perspective to normal Star Wars fans. He said one of his quotes was, "Good or bad, it's all machines, weapons, vehicles, soldiers of war. It's all a construct of who believe their side is inherently good." And I think that's just such a good quote, just showing that both sides feel like they're the good guys. Like it gives a balanced perspective. Like unlike some films, like the majority of Star Wars films, there's like here, this is clearly the good guys, this is clearly the bad guys. This film gives like a balanced perspective on both sides and why they're doing. They both want the same thing, and that's peace and control. The First Order think that they need to kill people to get that, but it's all for that end goal of peace and control. And I think that's a really interesting idea that is explored in this film.
I think that's something that maybe the Mandalorian hopefully will explore with the Imperial remnants, because again, they're not trying to control the universe; they're kind of trying to control small parts, small regions of space in the Outer Rim. Obviously, Moff Gideon, what he's doing, I guess, is he's doing very bad guy stuff. He's doing morally questionable stuff. But it'd be interesting if now that Moff Gideon's storyline has, I guess, his character arc is completed now, whether they'll go and explore those sort of themes of, like, yes, they're Imperial, but they think they're doing the right thing by maintaining order in their region of the galaxy, and arguably they are the law, and they do control their area of space well. And I think that would be something interesting. I think the Clone Wars did explore the nature of both sides of a war very, very well, with Senator Bonteri.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, that was I think that was called Heroes on Both Sides. I think it's the episode name. That's really good. But yeah, I think DJ as a character was really interesting, and I think my issue with the Canto Bite scene was that space horse dog thing was complete. Like that bit was a waste of time. That whole sequence was too long. Not the sequence itself was a waste of time. It was just too long. It's like a good 10 minutes, or it felt about 10 minutes of the chase. And I think if you're going to go to a planet and explore basically war profiteers, if you're going to do that, then you can't just suddenly cut to a bit of action. I think it could have, like, obviously that they kind of just go there and then they get immediately stunned when they find the guy they were looking for, and then they're thrown in jail and they meet DJ, right? TJ, and but his character is really interesting. It's interesting to see someone who's on both sides of the war. Again, some of this, like, I think in the film there's too many plot twists. Like, oh, we find the guy we want. Oh wait, we're getting tased, and then oh, we found this guy who can also do this impossible thing. Oh wait, he's working for the First Order now. There's a lot of instances where I think Rian Johnson did a lot of clever stuff, but he kind of ruined some of his own work by trying to do the unexpected in some ways as well.
Sure. Yeah, I think yeah, there's just so much about this film. I think if you break it down to like the bare bones, it's not really a film that's to fit in a franchise. It's basically a film Rian Johnson made about the Force. I mean, it basically is just exploring ideas about the Force, about how it's manipulated, how this Force is balanced, but can be manipulated, and just Rey, Luke, and Kylo's story and their experiences with the Force, with just how Luke, I know, is a very controversial figure in this film. But Rian Johnson wanted us to feel how Rey did when she met Luke. I genuinely feel that. I think he wanted us to feel let down and betrayed. But after Ben betrayed him, I mean, he didn't really betray him. Luke just kind of went at him with a lightsaber, which I know another scene which caused controversy, but Luke knew that there was dark side building up inside him and that it would get to a point where he would turn. And Luke kind of triggered that early. But Luke's moral principles had been betrayed by Ben, and that sent him into a downward spiral. I don't think that him ending up like a hermit was that big, was like that big I don't know how to phrase it, like a shock after what I've been through.
I think it was a step too far for him to basically hold up for 20 for the length of time. I think is the thing that's the issue. I think for me, I think Mark Hamill has said it that as well, the similar opinion to me, which is yeah, he may have gone off for after what happened for 6 months, but after then he'd be trying to figure out how to resolve the issue. I think Rian Johnson, maybe he should have talked with Mark Hamill when dealing with how Luke would do this. Not, I think the fact that he's on this island on his own is very interesting, and I think it makes sense that he would stay there. But I think the idea that he had spent the last 20 years cutting himself off the Force is the issue more so than him becoming a hermit, if that makes sense. Because even when Yoda, who has to deal with the fact that he's responsible for the deaths of 10,000 Jedi or more, effectively responsible because of the arrogance of the Jedi and not realizing the Sith were right under their noses because they're so cut off from the regular people in the universe, basically. He doesn't cut himself off from the Force.
Yeah.
I think that's the issue. I think that's my issue with it. None of the Jedi survivors cut themselves completely off from the Force. Even Ahsoka, who I think has the worst experience because she has to deal with the guilt of the fact she leaves the Jedi, and then after she leaves, all the Jedi get killed. And had she been with them, she probably would have been one of the Jedi who would have been killed. But she was lucky the way things worked out. Even she, when she cuts herself from the Force, is more of a precaution to stop the Empire finding her rather than just out of spite for the Force almost. I kind of agree. It's not too far that he would go and become a hermit. I think it's just, for me, like, it doesn't make logical sense that he would spend the whole 20 years cutting himself from the Force and basically ignoring who he was. I think if that makes sense, it's not my issue with the fact that he's a grumpy old man. It makes sense he'd be grumpy after that experience, but it just, like, the length of time it takes him to get over it just makes you kind of hate him.
Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah, I get what you mean. Luke's scenes are definitely interesting on Acto. I think the training scenes with Rey, I think they're all right. I think
all right. I think that sums up this movie though. All right, it's like it. I think that word sums up this movie. It's all right.
Yeah, fair.
At least for me, I think I dislike quite a lot of it because it's not. I guess it's, you could argue that it's Rian Johnson. It's not what I'd expect from a Star Wars movie, but it's not even even though it's not what I expect from a Star Wars movie. There's a lot of issues with the plot. Like, it's not just that it subverts my quote unquote expectations. There's a lot of issues with the plot not making sense in places as well. Like, the Luke thing is not one of the biggest issues. I think a lot of people made a big issue out of that. Although I don't feel like he, even when I first watched it, at least my instant reaction wasn't, oh, he's kind of he doesn't redeem. Didn't feel like he fully redeemed himself in that movie after what he had done in the beginning of it.
Really? See,
Yeah,
I feel like he kind of did redeem himself. I mean, he saved he basically saved the resistance and let them
yeah,
carry on, and that was a big part of that. Going from like that hermit to kind of taking the mick out of Ray when he's like on the rock in Acto going reach out, and then she just puts her hands out and he just
yeah.
starts tickling back
I,
with a leaf, and he's like, "Do
I
you
think
feel it? That's the force." Like,
I think that I think like like I said, it just did it always made me feel uneasy because he'd cut himself off from the force, and he was still cutting himself from the force. He never until that end scene, he doesn't even open up. He reluctantly teaches Ray, and even then, he keeps debating over it. And it felt a bit of out of character. Not so much like I said, not I don't have an issue with him becoming a hermit so much as the length of time cutting himself off from the force. The reluctance to teach Ray makes sense, but the reluctance for such a long period of the film where
yeah,
she's just following him around is both frustrating, and it only develops the hatred of us hating that character rather than bringing the plot forwards. And I think the film has a lot of scenes, like a lot of scenes where they there's there's a lot of places where they could have cut early, like the milk scene. Did we really need to see him milking something? No. Did we need to see him fishing to know he's a hermit? Like we could have seen those scenes without the length they took as well. There's a
I
lot of
didn't
cutting.
mind those scenes.
I
I
don't
just
mind them, but it's just
I think it added extra context to like how he was going about his life, and
yeah,
I think that was quite interesting about how he, especially with the fish. I mean, he definitely used the force for that, so I don't think he cut himself completely off. I still think there was a part of him
yeah.
because you
I
can't just
think
lob a stick and it immediately hits a fish.
I just think like it just felt like yeah, I don't know. It just felt out of character for me though. Like not so much that he's there and he's a bit grumpy and he's cut himself off from the force for like he would have cut it. I imagine he would have cut himself off the force for 6 months, few years, 5 years, 5 years is the maximum I see himself doing it from the character we knew. And I understand that they're trying to show how the character went from here to here, but there's a huge time gap, and you're making us fill it up with what we know rather than what we've seen
Yeah,
or what we understand of the character. Um, I do think that there was a lot of scenes that were very good with Luke, like the end fight with Kylo. I thought the idea of him being a force protection was interesting. Um, I think he maybe I do feel like he redeems himself, but there was a lot of small. It wasn't just the fight that and the fact he sacrificed himself for reasons. I think the fact that he went to his sister, that moment is like really good, and
yeah,
I think that scene upsets me quite a lot though because we all know what us as fans wanted and what the characters would have wanted, which is all of them to have been together. There's no denying it. Like the actors would have wanted to have been together. I don't think Carrie Fisher would have said she wouldn't have liked to have shot scenes with Harrison Ford and Mark Hamill
yeah.
more. I don't think she would have, and I don't think any of them would have. I mean, Mark Hamill tweeted the picture of the Millennium Falcon with with Han Solo, Leia, like photoshopped with their older selves, and you just wonder, like, there's a air of potential that was missed with the sequel trilogy. This is not a complaint necessarily at Rian Johnson, but as a sequel trilogy as a whole. Again, some people will say, well, you're just wanting a pure fan fiction. I feel like this film felt like fan fiction watching it
Yeah, no, fair enough.
as well.
I mean, if we, yeah, I'm trying to. There's a lot of things about this film which are controversial. Another thing I think we should discuss is Kylo in his starfighter decides not to fire at Leia. The other two do. Leia pulls her way back into the ship. What do you think about that scene? Because a lot of people are like, that is the stupidest thing I've ever seen.
I think the CG, the actual animation for it, where she's just floating, is the sort of level of Photoshop I could do.
Right.
Right, if that makes sense. Like, it's not dynamic. It looks bad, but it looks bad, or maybe that's it just looks bad. But I don't think it's like, I'm just like, oh, who cares? We're talking about space wizards and stuff in this, right? But I mean, it doesn't seem that bad. I think it's interesting because at least you're like, okay, so she had a bit of force training. I mean, it's shown in the Rise of Skywalker. Oh yeah, she actually did start training as a Jedi. So I think that's interesting. I don't have too much of an issue with it, although it is a bit nonsensical. I don't know, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I think that yeah, I don't mind it. I don't think people criticizing that scene. If you want to criticize like in uh, a special effects way, fair enough. It's not the best, but in terms of it makes sense after what was exploring the Rise of Skywalker, and yeah, I don't really have anything against it. And Leia in this film is just a badass. Like she just is for like in every film she's in. But this film, like one of the things that I love is when they get to Crate and there's this ship which is coming, and then it comes under the doors. They don't know it's Finn and the other girl. What's her name?
Rose.
Rose. That's it. That's so bad. But and then she, at like her old age, she's just been like exposed to like space, and she's just recovered, and she just comes running out with a blaster, just like rapid firing on this ship. I just thought, wow, she's such a badass. But
I think
yeah, I think she's just great in this film. I love Leia.
we talk about Leia. I briefly mentioned it, but I'd like to talk about it a bit more, which is the moment where uh, Mark Hamill Harris, Mark Hamill, Luke hands Leia the
Yeah,
golden dice from the Millennium Falcon. Now, I thought that was a really touching moment, especially with the context of Carrie
yeah.
Fisher passing away after that movie. I think it was during the shooting of um,
It was during
the
the
right.
show.
It was during the shooting, I think, wasn't it? Or it was just after they'd shot her scenes. And I think with that like added context, that scene is like with Luke, and I don't know if it was shot afterwards, but that's just such a good moment, and I felt like maybe the sequel trilogy as a whole was missing those sort of
Yeah,
emotionally impactful moments. I think it lacked that in a lot of places, and credit to Ryan Johnson, that scene was shot very well.
yeah, yeah.
How did you feel about that scene?
Yeah, yeah, I think that scene was really, yeah, I think it was beautiful, just the way that Luke comes back with yeah, I agree that
Yeah.
after a pass, it had an extra like impact. I mean,
Mm.
it was so sad, like that we'd lost the one of the original film badasses, like the strong woman leads that would take no rubbish from anyone,
Oh,
and that
yeah.
we'd
That's
finally gone, and
that's
that was just
that's
so
a,
sad.
yeah. It's really sad because I think especially when we rewatched it with that sort of context, that it was I believe it was after this, yeah, it was after this film, but I can't remember if it was before or after the release of this film. But with that sort of context of what's happened, I felt that, especially with like the handing of the dice, because she didn't have anything left from Han Solo, because um they had been separated for like quite some time, I think, and is like alluded to in the Force Awakens. And like the ships, the Millennium Falcon is like always like, I think it wasn't with them, was it? I can't remember. I don't think it was with them.
What in the last when they handed over the um
Dice, yeah, it was with
Ray,
Ray, wasn't it? So yeah, so I
things.
think it was like a nice moment. Again, it's kind of I was a bit upset that more moments like that between the original trilogy cast didn't happen. Like Lando, Like, I felt sort of, let's talk about Lando and Chewie quickly, because we're talking about original trilogy characters. I felt really bad for Chewie because basically every original trilogy character except from him gets killed off.
Pretty
Him
much.
and Lando are the only.
And Lando.
Lando, we're talking about Lando's great. But it's so sad like when they reunite because like poor Chewie, like everyone he knows is dead except from Lando.
Yeah, it is. It is quite sad. I do feel sorry for Chewie because literally the whole sequel trilogy is just all his like best friends just
Friends getting
dying.
killed. Yeah,
It's definitely a rough time.
I tell you what though, justice for Chewie, he got a medal at the end of the Rise of Skywalker.
Oh my god, that was the best character arc
Was,
ever. The way he
yeah.
didn't get a medal in A New Hope.
I tell you what, Chewie. We talked about this. I think Chewie is one of the few characters who had their character arc completed in the sequel trilogy.
You're not even wrong.
I'm not even wrong.
Yeah.
It's Luke has his arc completed in a, I guess, for me, an unsatisfying way. And it's the end of it is satisfying, but the middle bit between the original trilogy and stuff is not that satisfying. We talked about it earlier. We had issues. I think Kylo Ren has one of the most satisfying arcs as well.
Yeah, Kylo Ren.
I think the his development in The Last Jedi is interesting. Like you said, he doesn't shoot. You mentioned it earlier. He decides not to shoot Leia, and so it's very obvious throughout the film he is going to switch sides.
Yeah.
And we assume it's going to happen during the fight with Snoke, and it feels like it should have happened then. I know that obviously everyone's expecting it, so it's like subvert expectations. But there's only so many times you can subvert expectations where it doesn't get frustrating, because it makes sense that he would have been so conflicted. Especially he kills Snoke. You're like, oh, he's going to change sides now. He goes and fights with Rey. You're like, he's going to change sides now, and then he's as the ultimate gotcha. It felt like a gotcha. It felt like some sort of prank show, candid reaction sort of thing. Like, gotcha, I'm gonna become supreme leader now.
I don't think though,
it felt a bit like that.
I don't think
to me.
Johnson's point of the film though was about I think Rian Johnson tried to move away from the idea of good and bad and tried to move towards the idea of there just be like both sides think they're the good guys and both sides think the others are the bad guys.
But obviously
perspective.
I think, but the thing is, you heard what he was offering Rey, which was basically what the Emperor offered Darth Vader, which was, "Come rule by my side. Now I have killed my master. We will rule the universe," basically. And Rey's visibly upset by this because she's like, "I wanted Ben," and I think her reaction kind of sums up my reaction, which was they were this close to being able to fully develop a plot point of his character arc. And I know it happens at the end of The Rise of Skywalker, but it almost, I don't know if other people, maybe it's not an opinion other people have, but it felt like his character arc was pushed 3 steps back, and he was pushed back to the point, in the end of The Force Awakens where he killed his father, and he's starting to be conflicted instead of on his way to being turning from the dark side of the Force to the light side of the Force, and ultimately being less selfish, I guess you'd say.
Sure.
It just felt a bit out of place. I don't know if other people feel the same. It's just that's my thoughts, I guess. On what did you think about how Kylo Ren was treated then?
Yeah, I think Kylo is probably the best sequel trilogy character. Like he is, I think his character arc is good. I agree that the Last Jedi does kind of start back where The Force Awakens it does kind of backtrack and start an arc. Like there's a bit of arc which kind of it starts and then it kind of goes back a bit and then continues going, if that makes sense. And
If it was a line, it'd have if it was a straight line, it'd have a loop to loop,
yeah, it really would.
and it'd go back to it's a little bit sad because again it just felt like after he spared Leia and he'd killed his father, he's conflicted because he killed his father and therefore he spares his mother, and then he decides not to take the hand of basically the prodigy of his mother and well, not his mother, but his uncle, I guess, and it makes sense that he didn't do it immediately if you weren't going to do it immediately in the Last Jedi, but it felt weird that his character backtracked, backtracked, I guess, like you said, is the word for it. But yeah, he is one of the best sequel trilogy characters. Yeah. There's not much more to say than that.
I agree. I mean, other than the broomstick kid, he is the best sequel trilogy character. And talk about the broomstick kid. I mean, what a character! I mean, that end scene is. I know we're jumping about the film, all over the place, but
sorry about that if you're watching.
Yeah, it is just incredible. I mean, the way he just force pulls a broomstick over to him, looks at his ring. That's like the Republic. Was it the Republic sign?
I think it was the Rebels symbol, right? So it was the. I think it was the Rebels. Yeah, it was. It was the Rebels Resistance. Same thing. Yeah, I think it was that one.
And then just looking at the sky and the ship going into hyperspace. I mean, did Rian Johnson set up episode 9, or did he set up his own sequel trilogy about the broomstick kid? You've heard it here first. It's happening. His his trilogy is all about the broomstick kid.
I do wonder, like, where that was going, because you don't just set up, like, you can set up something for the wider universe and be like, oh, this is what's going on, but he focuses so much on just that one broomstick kid. There isn't another kid doing it. It's just him. You got to wonder whether he's like trying to set up. It felt a bit like Revenge of the Sith, where they're looking at what is it? Is it Uncle Owen is holding the baby Luke, and then you see the twin sons, and the movie ends. It kind of felt a bit like that. You're like, well, who's it setting up?
Exactly.
You just gotta. I feel like you said, does it set up his own trilogy? I think we may have mentioned this. It feels like a standalone film.
Yeah, definitely.
It feels like it would have been. He would have been better off directing and writing something as a standalone, not even a Rogue One standalone. I mean, like something fully separated from the Star Wars timeline that exists at the moment. High Republic. If he's doing a High Republic trilogy, which is, we don't know anything about his trilogy, do we? No, only that he has it. I think a High Republic trilogy would have suited him better than being inserted into a period that is affected by other periods. Yeah, I don't know how do you feel about the Rian Johnson new trilogy then?
I think that. I think that if given a trilogy, I think it could be really good. I mean, this film doesn't work. I think when people say it's a great film, it's a good standalone film. It's not good in the trilogy. And I think if you gave him the power over a whole trilogy, like he starts it, he ends it, it's his ideas the whole way through, and that's consistent. I think it could be really good, because there are definitely so many ideas in this which are really interesting, but the problem is that it doesn't set up episode 9 very well, and then J.J. Abrams has to start the film by hopping from everywhere in the universe.
We did say the unique factor was that there's a little bit of a grey area. Let's call it grey area of good and bad. However, I guess I didn't talk about this, but Lando in The Empire Strikes Back, he fills that role. And I was only thinking because a lot of people have said, "Oh, it's the best Star Wars movie." I think I can say the best Star Wars movie is The Empire Strikes Back. It's not my favorite movie. My favorite is Return of the Jedi.
Sure.
Although I'm sure people have hot takes on that being the case. But the best movie is The Empire Strikes Back for me, and I think close is Revenge of the Sith. Although again, that's a film that's quite like a hard watch sometimes because like it's hard hitting.
Yeah.
But he fills in that grey space of someone who deals with the Empire because it benefits the people around him. Because he's doing it for the livelihoods of, I guess, the people who are on Bespin, right? In Cloud City, and he does a similar thing where he's kind of double dealing because he's selling them out to the Empire, but you look at it. But I think the difference is that he's not doing it for monetary gain so much as he's doing it for the benefit of the people who actually are there, and it makes him a sympathetic character. Whereas TJ doesn't have TJ or DJ.
TJ.
TJ doesn't have. Yeah, I don't know why I thought. Anyway, TJ doesn't have that where he's sympathetic.
Yeah.
He doesn't have that. He's not sympathetic. Whereas I guess Orlando, I'm sure, or even like Hondo, despite the fact he's a pirate, there's something likable about him. Whereas he just comes off as a bit of a dick.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean.
I don't know if we need to bleep that.
Yeah, every episode, by the way, you're going to have Michael talk about Lando and Hondo.
Lando.
They're just going to come into every episode. But
it's because they're the best.
I mean, they are great. Bringing up another thing that causes a lot of controversy in the Star Wars fan base, Rose and Finn. What are your thoughts on those two characters in The Last Jedi?
All right, should we do Finn? I'll do Finn first.
Yeah.
I think Finn. I think we've heard things from John Boyega say his character was treated differently because he's back, and I think I do wonder if that's the case because obviously I'm not on set. I don't know what happens. I haven't seen how the writing process happens, but you have to wonder whether he's onto. You wonder if he's onto something, and I think maybe he's right because he had one of the most interesting character arcs, or the beginning of a character arc in The Force Awakens. An ex-stormtrooper who turns because they're being ordered to do something against their morals, against like basically basic human nature, it would seem, to not want to shoot unarmed innocent people, and then he's a coward because he runs away, and that's sort of developed. And then in The Last Jedi, we see a similar situation to Kylo where he repeats the cycle. He's a coward, he runs away, and he does the same thing where he fights, he then overcomes it and then ends up in hand-to-hand combat with a trained stormtrooper, which is what happened in The Force Awakens. And happened when he fought Captain Phasma. And he holds his own to some degree against them. And he beats Captain Phasma, so I guess that's a bit of character development, but I don't know. I just feel like he's done dirty a bit because there could have been a lot more character development. It's hinted he's Force sensitive, especially as I think we may have we've talked about it in private about how lightsabers work and the fact they're not weighted.
Yeah.
And that makes them extremely difficult to use in combat. And from sources I've seen, the way it works is that obviously if you're Force sensitive, you can kind of sense where the blade is, and so it suggests that maybe he's Force sensitive when he uses the lightsaber. And he's shown as being Force sensitive in The Rise of Skywalker, and you wonder whether they could have done something with that. They could have done something a bit more with his character. Rose, I don't know how I feel about. It's a bit of a mixed one. But what were your thoughts on Finn? Do you think he was done a bit dirty?
I think it's weird because in episode 7, he in my opinion, Finn was, for the sequel trilogy as a whole, was the character with the most potential. I mean, how an ex-stormtrooper that's turned against that's so sick and had so much potential. And in the Force Awakens, you see there's definitely hints, and it's quite clear that he's Force sensitive, or it's definitely hinted at quite strongly. And then gets the Last Jedi, and it's like not touched at all. And then it's kind of picked up in Rise of the Skywalker. And I think there was definitely, because Rian Johnson basically, as I said earlier, this film was basically him exploring ideas about the Force with Rey, Luke, and Kylo, and then the rest is just filler. I think he didn't really spend enough time like thinking about like other ideas with like the good thing with Finn's character art was him going to Canto Bight. You got to meet DJ and that. But yeah, you're right. It was too similar to the Force Awakens. He needed a different kind of role in the story, and yeah, I just it wasn't his best. I think it was quite funny that his introduction at the start of the film was funny when he was just walking around in this thing and there's just water spilling out of him. I think that was
that was a good scene. I like that.
That was a funny scene, but yeah, I don't think his story was like one of the things that's good about this film. But yeah, moving onto Rose, what do you think about her?
She didn't really serve any plot purpose. I think I think with this we've got to talk about diversity, female leads,
Yeah,
ethnic minority characters. I think a lot of people with this film, if you say you don't like it, we talked about it. You said you had the little rant at the earlier, but if people have said to Star Wars fans who didn't like it, you don't like female characters, you don't like seeing you know like the female lead. You don't like seeing ethnically diverse casts. I don't think people understand that's not the fans' issues who don't like it. Well, I'm sure there is a small minority who I wouldn't call Star Wars fans that would call themselves Star Wars fans who are in that. But the vast majority, I think, of us who maybe on the same sphere of thinking that we are in, which is it's not a good, it's definitely not the best movie, and we're not, or on even further, and they don't just hate the movie, but they don't. It's not because there's a female lead. It's not the reason we don't like it. We like female leads. Look at how Ahsoka's done in the fan base.
yeah,
People that say we don't like ethnically diverse characters. Look at Lando. I talk about Lando all the time, and I think if you talk to any fan, they'll tell you they love Lando.
yeah.
It's not this. I think the steps towards introducing ethnically diverse casts is good. I think it's necessary to have a ethnically diverse cast. And I think it's great to see female leads. I think the issue people have is that they haven't been the characters of the issue, not the people who are playing them, not what they look like. It's an issue of, is it a good character? Is it a bad character? Doesn't matter if they're male, female, black, white, yellow, pink, purple, green. We really don't care. If they're a good character, we're gonna like them. Look at Thrawn; he's blue. We like him, but it's not that these characters do worse with the fandom, at least, because they're diverse. It's, we want these good characters, and as I was saying with Rose, I don't know if she served any plot point. I don't think it was the actress's fault. I don't think it's her fault. Although some of we're talking about the lines like oh, what's the line? I want to put my fist through this beautiful town, or whatever it was, whatever the line was. God, that's God, I hate that line. It's so bad. That scene, it could have been like, that scene was a good commentary on what's going on with very chunky dialogue, and people are going to say, well, the prequels had chunky dialogue. That's true, but I don't know what her character did. How do you feel about Rose? Do you think people just don't like her because of this issue of ethnic diversity and female leads, or whether there's something else behind her?
Yeah, I just think her character's basically. You see her sister die at the start of the film just to give her a bit of depth. That's basically the only
Yeah,
reason to give her character some depth. and then you're kind of like, oh yeah, you got to feel bad. They're kind of like shove in your face, feel bad for Rose. Her sister just died, and then like saving the resistance. And but yeah, I just don't think her character was great. I mean, I guess she added a different, like she gave Finn interesting like perspective. Like Finn was like, "Oh, this is amazing," and she's like, "Yeah, but you don't understand like the
Yeah,
reality." And that was
yeah.
interesting. And then saving Finn at the end of the film.
I thought that was cool.
Yeah, I think that was
I don't have
cool.
too many complaints about that.
Yeah, but
That
then that,
scene is not so bad. I think the forced romance where she
yeah,
kisses him, it's like a bit. It's like it felt so forced because the whole time he's like Ray, 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 and then some other
yeah,
girl kisses him, and you're like, what? we all know that he's into Ray because he can't shut up about her, and that's not a bad thing. I think it's interesting because they developed this relationship between Finn and Ray because they're the only two leads, except from Kylo, who kind of talk to each other. Which I think we talked about again. Is the cast is all split up. It's one of the problems, but yeah, it's kind of a shame because she does say like what you said about how she points out, oh, this is the reality of the money's not. Where do you think the money came from? It's war,
yeah,
and his perspective on it changes. I think that's really good. I just think there's a lot of issues with the actual characterization of that character. Again, we'll talk about. I'm sorry, I have to bring it up again. I'm sure you've done with this, but people harassed the actress online. It's just,
so
I know
much.
it's the same happened to Hayden. It's just, when people just go and get a life, please.
Yeah,
It's like I think we're some of the people who love Star Wars the most. I mean, we're not so deep into the books and stuff, but we love Star Wars.
yeah,
But it's just we know it's just a film at the end of the day. you
yeah,
know, we're not gonna go and harass an actress, even if we think someone's performance is bad. There's a constructive way to talk about it. Like I don't even think her performance isn't the issue. The actual writing,
yeah,
I think, was the issue. I think we have the same with Finn actually, where I think his acting was pretty good in the trilogy as a whole, but
yeah.
I think he was let down by the writing. I'll say it again. I wonder whether this is because he's a black actor, and if his character was treated differently as a result. I don't know how do you think that could be the case?
Yeah, I don't really. He brought up in his interview about how he felt that, and to be honest, in Holly, it wouldn't surprise me if that was the case.
Mm,
But I don't think that they the storyline he got was because he was black. If you know what I mean, I don't think he was necessarily. I think it was more deeper than the like Rian Johnson and maybe the writers. I don't really because at
yeah,
the end
yeah,
it's 20 whatever the film came out, what, 18 I think it
18.
came out, and it's like there was a Hollywood was becoming um, more diverse, and surely these writers had written for
Yeah,
ethnically diverse characters before, so I don't necessarily think there was to do with the writing. And so I think there his him talking about racism. I don't think it was to do with the writing and the directing necessarily. I think it was something deeper than that. But yeah, at the end of the day,
yeah.
we
We don't
don't.
know. We don't know. Again, that's why I haven't said whether I think it is or isn't.
Yeah,
I do think there is the possibility that it could have
yeah,
played a part, but we don't know. Again, because we're not behind the scenes or working on it, but it does make you wonder because he had such good potential, whether they sidelined him. And when they advertised the film in China, I think it was The Force Awakens. They
yeah,
did remove him out of the poster because he was basically because he's back. That's because they didn't think that the Chinese audience would want to see it.
yeah, yeah. No,
Um,
they removed him completely, but they definitely in the
oh,
main.
they put him further at the back. Yeah,
Kind of put him at the back and made him much smaller,
Ola.
which is really like disgraceful. I don't know
Tasteful.
if that
Yeah.
them or it was China doing that. But yeah, that was
I
really
think it was. I think Disney did it to sell. I think Disney did it to sell the film in China. I think
yeah.
that's disgraceful. And I think again, it hurts me when I hear people, you can't have this discussion like we're having, where we're talking about it and we're not you know, we're not if we're in the, I guess we're in a situation where one of us really like the film, we're not gonna, I don't feel like we're the sort of people who'd be like, oh, it's because you're racist, you
Yeah.
don't like seeing a ethnically diverse cast and having them as main characters. Oh, you don't like women, you know, you're sexist. I think it's like you said at the beginning, people need to grow up a bit
Yeah.
and they need to understand we're all just
Yeah,
yeah.
I get you, but it's really ridiculous because in Star Wars, there are so everyone loves it, and there's so many different species of race in Star Wars, of um different kind of characters, different aliens, and different people, and
Mm.
all Star Wars fans are happy with that. But then suddenly, there's a Asian character in Rose, and there's a black character in Finn, and there's uproar about it, despite the fact that there's just so much. Star Wars is
Yeah.
like such a diverse universe, and everyone was happy with that and loved it. And then suddenly these two characters come along, and there's hate, and
Mm.
it's a problem not just in Star Wars but in society.
Society. I think surprisingly for one of our podcasts, we've hit a pretty like serious, like a serious real world issue, which is like there aren't that we can talk about it quickly, is there isn't enough black male or female leads, or I guess other non-binary people leads. There's not enough black leads in general. Like Black Panther was a big deal because it had such a large cast
Yeah,
of black characters, and also not just black characters, but also producers, directors,
yeah,
writers. And I think although you said like it was 2018 when this film came out, there's still not been enough steps even now towards having more people in more ethnically diverse people in either positions of power in the film industry or as main characters. I think again, I think we've seen it in the modern Star Wars. We've got like either both background characters and foreground characters are becoming more ethnically diverse. And I think it just makes it more interesting because, like you said, we're in the middle of space. Of course, people are going to look different. They're going to be from different places all over the galaxy. They're all going to look different. It's like the aliens. It's always nice when you see like 5, 6 different aliens in the background. They're all different colors, shapes, sizes, species. It just makes it visually interesting for stuff, and it also means that people, when we talk about actor to actor, people who are coming from different backgrounds will approach a role differently, and therefore you get different characters. Like it's a good thing for film to be doing. But yeah, it's obviously we don't know about how much of race and gender played a role in the film,
yeah.
and whether like John Boyega had said whether he was sidelined a bit as a result of being a black actor and a black character
Yeah,
he was
no,
portraying.
yeah, it's definitely just a societal issue. But
Mm.
trying to wrap up now. What are your final thoughts on the film? So, overall would you say it's a good film, or would you say I know you're going to lean towards
I think I'm
yeah,
going to lean towards. I think I'll lean towards bad film. It's not terrible and like it's entertaining. I think it has too many narrative faults. Too many narrative faults where the plot isn't coherent. And a lot of the character arcs. I think the main issue I've pointed out is the character arc seemed like for the Finn and for Kylo Ren and even Rey to a certain extent. Um, although Rey not so bad, they kind of take a couple of steps back. Like again in this film, like who our parents are is made like is the main question, and they turn out to be no one. So it's
yeah,
built up, and then nothing comes of it, which is
yeah.
fine. They don't need to be anyone,
But
but
then in the
if
next
that's
film,
going,
like
yeah,
in
if
the film,
yeah,
they're like
if
something.
but if that was going to be the conclusion, they should have done something else with Ray. So yeah, I think if I'm gonna wrap it up, I'll say yeah, it's not like a necessarily bad film, but I'll lean towards bad and say it's entertaining. But I can still watch it as a standalone film. But when I watched Rise of Skywalker afterwards, I think there's issues with it fitting into the trilogy.
Sure. I think it is. When watching it, I think it's definitely enjoyable standalone film. I think it's really solid. People who say it's their favorite Star Wars film, it's not mine, but to be honest, I can see your point of view. I can see
Yeah,
why you enjoy it. But yeah, that's going to wrap up this podcast. Thank you for watching. What do you think? Let us know in the comments below. Thank you, Michael, for joining me.
thank you for having me again.
No worries. And yeah, thanks for watching. Make sure like, subscribe, comment, and may the force be with you.
Always.